Now we have a great panel with some people who are grappling with a core problem, A, for crypto, but also for finance generally. We've talked a little bit about it already, and that is security, but you can't talk enough about it. You heard the story about Michael Turpin's problems, and you heard the efforts to try to resolve this core problem of the security of our digital assets. So Robert Hackett from Fortune is going to moderate this. Robert, can you come up on stage and introduce your panel?
Hi, everybody. Welcome. I'm Robert Hackett. I'm from Fortune, where I co-lead the Ledger, which is our fintech franchise. Today, we're going to be talking about security, as Michael mentioned. And before we get started, I'm going to have my panelists introduce themselves each. But before we do that, I'd like to just level set and ask, who here owns cryptocurrency? OK. All right. About half, I'd say. Does anybody use a hardware wallet to secure their cryptocurrency?
Got a few.
iPhone? OK. All right. OK, we got a few. And has anybody lost cryptocurrency in a hack?
I want to see those
Raise your
hands.
hand if you've lost cryptocurrency in a hack. Nobody. OK, everybody's doing pretty well.
It's okay, you're not
there.
being recorded.
OK, so
Testing one.
let's get things started, and we'll go straight down the line, starting with you, Stephen. If you could introduce yourself. Everybody just say your name, title, and give a brief word about your company. We'll keep it brief.
I'm Stephen Sprague. I'm CEO of Rivetz. Rivetz is a company that's building software that runs inside your mobile phone to take advantage of the embedded hardware security, provide protection for keys, messages, blockchain. And we've recently built a relationship with Telefonica to also include the SIM module as part of the carrier handset. So you have dual roots of trust providing protection, not relying on a single supply chain.
Excellent.
My name is Gary Davis. I am the Chief Consumer Security Evangelist for McAfee, not McAfee, McAfee. Most of you probably know us as the cybersecurity company. Been around for a while, have a very healthy consumer and enterprise business, and look forward to this panel.
Vincent Ramoutar, founder and CEO of uConekt. We offer a secure solution using a tamper-resistant hardware to secure your identity so that you can be safe whenever you carry your identity, because we're going to use your biometrics to protect your data.
Hello, I'm Larcheveque. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Ledger. We are a security company providing with hardware wallets. For instance, maybe a few of you know the Nano S that has been sold to 1.5 million units in 165 countries. And we recently launched for the CES the Nano X, which is the new generation hardware wallet with Bluetooth connection.
All right, excellent. Thank you all for being here. So, Gary, I'm going to ask my first question to you. You're at McAfee. You're seeing lots of different attacks. You're seeing all the latest and greatest attacks and hacks going on. What are some of the most popular ones you're seeing criminals take advantage of?
Yeah. You know, for the past couple of years, ransomware has really been the focal point for our industry. You know, it manifests itself in several ways, and it's got a lot of media attention and things like that. But in this past year in particular, we saw a fundamental shift from, and don't get me wrong, there's still healthy growth in ransomware, but we saw a 4,000% increase in cryptojacking malware. So the bad guys are thinking, okay, you know, I don't want to be in your face about my malware. I just kind of want to run quietly in the background and hope you never notice it. And I can use your compute power and your other resources to allow me to mine. So we think that's going to be an interesting trajectory going forward, because again, if this is on a consumer device, you know, it's going to be hard for a consumer, especially if it's a thing in their house. It's going to be really hard for them to detect it's on there.
Which one of these should we be more concerned about, ransomware or cryptojacking?
You know, again, this is just a belief thing. You know, ransomware is one of those things where people get really paranoid about because it literally stops their digital life, right? You can't go that next step until you get through that step. Where, to me, cryptojacking malware, it's this evil intruder that's always there, and you never know if it's going to manifest as something else, right? So it's sitting there idle, it's mining and doing whatnot, but it's getting instruction from the command and control server, which could give it, you know, different life and a different existence. So if I had to say which I think I would be more concerned about today, I would say cryptojacking malware, just because, again, it's almost like heart disease. It's a silent killer.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
What do you think about fake news? I mean, at the heart of this, what fake news is just a simple hack, right?
Yeah.
Nobody really cares that we put fake posts on about presidential candidates. It really doesn't, it's been sort of a very innocuous, one could argue, hack. But it's proving that the data that we see on the web, we can't really be assured is real. And to me, the exposing of that rock, I mean, the growth of that business, that the data on the internet might be all fake, and that we don't have the evidence to know that when I receive a piece of data, that the data is real, I think is to me, the scariest thing that exists out there. Like, don't trust what's on your screen. What's on your screen isn't real. Well, it's hard, you have no evidence as a consumer to prove it.
Yeah, I think in that world, you end up very jaded, right?
Uh-huh.
If you sit there and thinking everything that you're consuming is invalid, then the system is fundamentally broke, right? Then how do we do a reset?
But that's the point, right?
Well,
we're just seeing the tip of that iceberg.
Yeah.
People don't think that way. They still believe what they see on the internet,
Yeah,
right? That's the problem, is they still believe.
Well, and I'm an optimist, and I hope that again, I think fake news is awful, and I think it's damning our economy and our country, and there's a lot of other ethical challenges with it. But I don't think it's, again, maybe I just don't want to go there personally, because I think that if we go to the point where we think everything we ever see in front of us is fake, then we are fundamentally broke at that point. We have no means to go forward.
Well, Stephen, so why do you bring this up? We're on the
'Cause he's
digital
mad.
money forum.
No, because all the data is fake. So
My question is, how does cryptocurrency or blockchain play into this?
Sure.
We're on the digital money forum. So what is the relation here?
So before we get to blockchain,
Sure.
how do I know if I send an instruction to a bank that the instruction I sent was real, right? And so right now we do all this crazy stuff, right? Multi-factor codes, phone calls, big data, watching everything you do to try and guess whether you're really the person who sent the please pay $3.95 to Amazon,
Please
right?
answer
Because
this captcha.
e-commerce is broken. It's never been fixed. Bricks and mortar is pretty good, but e-commerce, we just don't know anything. And so when you project that and you realize that we cannot send a secure message, which means I can't do IoT, which means that everything written to the blockchain is also fake. So if I have a chain, while I know the chain is immutable, right, I can look at a transaction on the chain and everybody goes, yep, that has not changed since March 14th, to 2017 when it was written. I can prove it's the same. But I have zero evidence on the chain that the transaction written was the transaction intended. And so if I go to court, I have to have other stuff. Like I need my antivirus log files from my Windows PC in order to assert that this transaction written to the chain on March 14th was real, assuming I still have my log files from March 14th, right? So there's this sort of fundamental virus that's been sitting underneath all of the internet, which is this basis that security wasn't built in. And I think blockchain is a new opportunity to revisit that problem and build new tools and technologies. Like, we're all talking hardware here.
I'm not. I got my phone.
Yeah. But
Vincent, so you actually have a device and you're working on solving some of this problem with being able to suss out what's real and what's fake, whether somebody is legitimately authorizing a transaction. Show us your device and how it works. Tell us what you're working on.
So in summary, this is the form factor is a wearable device. And it, of course, in the world of IoT today, what's in here, a postage site stamp PCB, can be in your Samsung fridge right now. It could be in a baby's monitor, right? The same thing. The idea is that if you can protect some fundamental attributes of your identity, and it doesn't necessarily have to be a person, it could be an asset. It could be your car, it could be the connected car that you're going to buy, the new Tesla. It could be any other item that has value and you deem that to be an asset, can be stored, can be encrypted. And the beauty about a solution like this, as opposed to using a smartphone, is that whatever you store, your private keys, your identity is stored in a tamper-resistant piece of hardware. So we heard about the SIM jacking, and we heard about all the other stuff that was earlier talked about.
Was everybody here for the Michael Turpin talk?
Yeah, you cannot SIM jack this. This is a secure element that's level 6 compliant. As soon as you try to open it, it breaks. You try to reprogram it, you can't because you don't have the keys to reprogram something like this. So we are looking at more advanced ways and writing the types of solutions and applets, and of course, partnering with Rivetz to take the smartphone as a trusted execution environment coupled with a hardware device such as this with its own TEE environment, right? And now you can secure the whole chain. And putting an identity on the blockchain now means that you can take your identity with you. Think of your passport, something very similar to that. Payments, your credit cards, these can all be stored in a wallet.
So I don't want to get too graphic here, but this is a device. It's meant to secure various aspects of your digital identity. What if somebody chops off your hand, Jaime Lannister style, like from Game of Thrones? What
Interesting question. So as soon as they chop off your hand, then this device becomes useless because it's going to require a live fingerprint.
Okay.
So much for that.
I would tell you that even more importantly, you notice. If I steal your username and password, like there was a hack the other day where Marriott I think lost 500,000 passport numbers. How many people in the room know if one of their passport numbers was part of that hack? Nobody. We have no idea. We don't even know where to go look it up, right? And so we have no awareness that we lost our passport numbers.
But what is really multi-factor authentication? Isn't it that we want to be able to put a number of layers so that we could reduce the attack surface to a smallest possible value so that when a hacker tries to get to something of value that you have or you own, that you want to give them the most difficult challenge to do that? I mean, that's what it is all about. So whether we use fingerprint, whether we use voice, retina scan, facial scan, those are all multi-factor authentication methodologies, software products. All they're doing is just putting a layer so that when someone wants to get to your information, they have to go through some hurdles to get there.
So Eric, let's pass things to you. You are working on your own hardware device. Ledger's got, it's one of the standards for cryptocurrency, vaults. Show us what you've got here. You've just unveiled a new product.
Yes, so it's a new product we just launched. So for the one who are familiar with the Nano S, which is our flagship hardware wallet, it looks a little bit the same, but the difference here is that we have Bluetooth. Usually you have to connect your device to the computer. So we are our job is isolation. Crypto assets are the easiest assets that you can steal in the world because it's just data. And this is used to have isolation. You have your private keys are inside a secure element that is extremely difficult to hack. And so when you connect it to your computer through a USB cable or through Bluetooth, you make sure that whatever happens, even if the connection is compromised, computer is compromised, smartphone is compromised, you cannot access the private keys. Because again, you cannot trust the screen of your PC or anything, so you have to validate what you see is what you sign. And what we have done with the Nano X is to unleash the mobile usage. Most of the users of the Nano S are basically storing cryptocurrencies to what we call hodling. You mean you buy, you wait, and you hope that maybe you are going to sell later, but you do not use it that much. And if you want to use it, you have to take out your computer. It's a little bit clunky. So if we want to have more usage, more use cases, then you can connect directly to your smartphone. And it's much, much easier, so that's why we have been working on this device. And also, as Ledger is a global company, we sell in 165 countries. For the Asian markets, it was very important to get rid of the computers because everyone has a smartphone there, and so it was very important to have something that works in any situations.
So over the past year, we've seen a total collapse of cryptocurrency prices.
Not total. Otherwise, we wouldn't be here. But a good collapse, yeah, let's say.
It hasn't been good for investors.
It hasn't been good, yes.
Unless you're shorting it. how does that affect your business? Does this lack of mainstream interest, how does that affect your sales and your business
I don't think the interest is weighed. I'll agree there's probably a lot of concern about, do I get in now because it's collapsing so poorly? But I don't think the interest is waned at all. There's still a lot of interest. I would argue there's probably more pent-up demand and seeing if they can somehow recover and fix some of the security challenges around cryptocurrency before more mainstream investors or the average Joes invest. That'd be my take.
But money is just the demo, guys. Come on. The model here is not about how much money I can make by transactionally trading crypto on a day basis as a day trader. That's ridiculous. It's the whole conversation in the industry today. I went to the Invest conference and we were talking about options trading. Like, really? Who cares? It's completely irrelevant. What's important is the use that we're going to have for this. So let me use an example. Can you imagine a micropayment where when the act of the payment, you enrolled the account? There is no account enrollment. There's no form fill. There's no nothing. The act of spending 25 cents opened a higher assurance account online than any account you own today. That's what the promise of crypto is. It's about enabling the consumer with a new model for how we're going to interact with this medium that sucks, called the internet. And the reason it sucks is because we haven't gotten mentally past username and password logging in. Like Apple had this revolution called the iPhone. They went backwards in time. They copied the CompuServe model for access control, not the BlackBerry model for registration of a device. We're going back in that direction. Two-factor authentication, something we all love to hate, okay, is registration of a device. We like our experience at home where you sit at home, you turn on the TV, and HBO comes on. If you don't pay the bill, HBO doesn't come on. There's no stupid password. My children, on the other hand, have HBO to go. You have to set the password. The most fun hack in my household in the last year was Grandma reset the Netflix account. And the kids were like in a panic. They're like, somebody hacked the Netflix account. Da-da-da. And after a whole bunch of investigation, it turns out Graham hacked the Netflix account in partnership with Mom, who helped the recovery name because it was on the kid's email she had access to. Fantastic. And so, like, really? That's where we are today? Like, in order to access this world of services, we have never fixed e-commerce. What is commerce? What is a transaction? You started it. What you see is what you sign. You have to have that. When you go to Walmart and there's a point of sale terminal, what you see on that terminal is what you sign. Then there should be user consent, a PIN number you type into the Walmart payment terminal. Well, we're Americans, so we don't use PINs. We did chip and signature in the brilliance of the fintech industry of the United States of America. No one checks the signature. So we abandoned one leg of the 3 legs of security. The third one is a chip that holds your key. So that way your key can't be easily stolen from somebody else. What we're doing here is just using those technologies to protect keys in mobile devices, in other devices. And then the fourth leg is some form of attestation or measurement that the other 3 pieces are working properly. In the fintech industry, that's called PCI compliance. We need to move to a model with blockchain where we have all 3 of those pieces. Today with a Ledger Nano, you have all 3. But we want to build it into the mobile devices going forward. And you need measurement or attestation that those parts were in place. So the negative we have today is while I can use my ledger to do a transaction on the blockchain, I have no evidence on chain that I used a ledger versus some wallet that holds my private keys in Windows. And that's the part that still has yet to be fixed. There's no cybersecurity framework for all of blockchain because blockchain is decentralized. Public chains are censorship proof. And all of the previous network security that we have out there is censorship. It's about blocking traffic. It's about, I have a firewall and I block the traffic, or I have packet inspection and I block the traffic. I do all those things. It's fundamentally about blocking bad things. Blocking bad things doesn't work on public blockchain, period. It
So,
has to
Steve,
be applied to the keys.
You've raised a number of good points about the challenges with identity authentication on the internet and the pitiful state of security there. I want to turn things to Vincent and ask about what you're working on, because actually, at the beginning of this, you said you called cryptocurrency a sideshow a bit to what the potential is to be realized with blockchain ID applications. Vincent, you're actually going to do an ICO in the near future, is that right?
Yes.
So you're going to be using cryptocurrency in tandem with solving some of these blockchain identity challenges. So
Yeah, what we started doing, so we've set up a company in Switzerland, and our goal is to launch an ICO. So we've already filed with the regulators, and we're just waiting for them to give us this no action letter, which is part of the regulations that they fulfill. And at the end of the day, what we would like to do is to take the identity of an asset, of a person, of something of value, and store that identity with a private key, and then put that as a token. And our token is conveniently named from the company uConekt. We will call it Connect ID, CKT ID. And the goal there is that identity, working with a number of proof of concepts that we've started and being engaged with, is to be able to take the identity and have it transportable, make it portable as part of the self-sovereign model. But we are focusing on the options of control, interoperability, and portability. And so at the end of your day, you need to know that if I am going to give a transaction approval, I've done it with my fingerprint or with my voice and any other biometric methods that we use in the future. And that I have I'm convinced that I did those transactions, and I don't need someone else to attest to that. And I think that's the world that we're talking about, is in the blockchain. Once you've assessed that and you've done it, you know that it's immutable and it's your proof that you've committed those transactions.
So over in the US, the Securities and Exchange Commission has taken action against a number of ICOs over the past year. How are you structuring this thing so that it's compliant and it's not going to piss off regulators?
Good question. So for us, because we are going to be an identity token. So the utility model basically says my identity is going to be the token, and then now I will use my identity to perform a transaction. So I am going to make a payment, right? So we're working on getting certified right now. We passed level 1 certification for MasterCard, and we're going to go for level 2 certification. So this device will have a wallet, a digital wallet, and it will have a cryptocurrency wallet, all built in. And now you'll be able to work with a bank once they approve both types of wallets, and you will now be able to offer transactions based on one piece of hardware that is secure.
So speaking of hardware security, we'll jump back to you, Eric. I had asked you a little bit earlier, we didn't quite get to hear your answer, but given the fact that prices have gone down quite substantially over the past year, how has that affected your business selling hardware that secures this crypto wealth?
Well, for sure there was an impact. In 2017, when it was a craziness, we sold 1 million devices. Last year, we sold 500,000 devices. So, of course, it's less, but it is still quite good. Despite the fact that the price has been going down, that the media interest on Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies has been going quite down, the sales of the hardware wallets has been quite resilient. And what we can observe is when there was, like lately, a few weeks ago, an even bigger descent of the price, it generated a lot of, let's say, mentions and in the press about cryptos, like crypto is dead, but they were speaking again about crypto. And so it made more traffic, more sales. So in fact, I don't think it's about getting up or getting down. It's just when something happens, it's good for business. But one thing is for sure is that the need for security, the education of the users has been quite good. And now I think that anyone who wants to be serious about doing anything in cryptocurrencies is going to think about the security, which was not the case 2 or 3 years ago, especially in the US where there is no culture of hardware security. When we started Ledger at the beginning, really no one believed in our model because we say, okay, you need a hardware device. and they were saying like, wow, we are in the cloud, we don't need hardware. But now I think people have understood the need for security, and so the hardware wallets are quite resilient into the sales.
Can I help but just add one little piece to this? So Rivetz is a company that's building software to support the security within the mobile phone. So if I told you there were 1.4 billion devices that have been shipped that could run a hardware wallet, that would surprise you. If I told you there were 1.8 billion PCs that were shipped with hardware security on the motherboard to eliminate multi-factor authentication for all your online services and banking, that would surprise you. So really, every single enterprise and consumer class PC shipped in the last, since 2006, has tamper-resistant hardware identity on it, so I don't have to guess if it's the customer. I could enroll the customer's machine as part of their banking experience. And we haven't been provided as consumers the tools to turn it on. The magic that's here is that consumers have gone out and bought 1.5 million hardware wallets. Now, that will start this marketplace of turning on this awareness that what we want is not passwords. What we want is to log into our device and our device to log us into the world. And the tools already exist in our modern smartphones to do this. They're 20-year-old standards. They're billions of dollars that have been put to work with them across many different companies, from Intel to AMD to ARM to Qualcomm to others, have invested literally billions of dollars to give us the capability of a ledger wallet embedded within a mobile phone. And so now's the opportunity to begin to turn that on. And there'll be a full spectrum. There will be the stuff embedded in my mobile device, and there'll be separate devices. They serve different purposes. But this idea that we might finally give the tools to the consumer to have a safer and simpler relationship with the web. Today you love dial the number and push send. It's your most often used form of multi-factor authentication. Taught mom how to use it, taught the kids how to use it. And it's basically safe. And that's the challenge, right? We haven't turned it on yet. And so blockchain is this amazing catalytic opportunity to change everything we touch. When you wander around CES and you see every little device that's going to get a key, where are you as a consumer going to manage all those keys? These are the technologies. Blockchain is the mechanism that's going to help us to organize those keys. So it's the foundation of how all services and connectivity will be delivered is with blockchain. And the crypto, the underlying tokens of which we've had hundreds of them, now we're down to less than hundreds of them, may be the mechanism for how we actually pay, compensate, control, operate those services. It's such a fundamental change in how it happens, but you really have to think of money as the demo. Don't get so caught up in the trading. Realize that this is about enabling 3 billion global subscribers over the top. That's the model to be built. This is how consumers create and connect.
There is still a lot of fragmentation.
Yeah.
I mean, because the question is why do we do not have this now? Is also because the trusted UI is not here. I mean, you can have some trusted execution environment in Samsung's phones. You can have Intel SGX to really provide an isolation. But if you want to have what you see is what you sign, you need to have a secure screen. And this is not yet ready.
And you and I both know that not only does today, let's say a Samsung Galaxy S8, back as far as a Note 4, have what's called Trusted User Interface, which is part of the global platform specification for trusted display. But more entertaining than that is in 2009, McAfee, when it was part of Intel, demonstrated capabilities of trusted display, which then shipped on 1 billion Ultrabooks. So we shipped 1 billion Ultrabooks with trustworthy display. That means an image on the screen can't be read or copied by the operating system. So I can put an image on the screen where what you see is actually got some assurance to it. It's not perfect, but vastly superior to displaying something with Windows where I have no idea whether Windows writes it on the screen or not. It hasn't been altered.
No, we will come there. I think it will still take a few years before we will be able to leverage that. But I think we will eventually come there because anyway, if you want, even if you speak about cryptocurrencies, if you want real mass adoption, this is not the go-to market. You cannot have like hundreds of millions of devices. At some point, we will need to deploy our technology into the trusted execution environment. So that's the path forward.
And jumping off of what Stephen was saying about phones getting better security tech, more secure enclaves that are better positioned to handle this, what is your pitch going forward to get consumers interested in buying a separate security hardware device?
Because today the technology is not ready. The trusted execution environment that you have in Samsung phones, if you buy in Europe or if you buy in the US, you will not have the same architecture. So sometimes you do not even know if you are equipped with the TEE. And so since you have this fragmentation, it's much easier to provide with an external device that can work with any phones, Android, iOS. Also, from a point of view of security, the hardware security is much better. And at the end, it's also psychological. We have seen that a lot of our customers are happy to have something in their hands because they say, this is my crypto, my precious, It gives some sense of ownership. And I say it's quite important when you speak about cryptocurrencies that no one really understands. At least they say, okay, I have something in my hands, and so it helps for the adoption.
And I think in addition to that, there will always be a spectrum of devices, right? You're going to want your day-to-day crypto and use models in your mobile phone. So let's say I used crypto to sign every encrypted message I sent, like in a telegram. You wouldn't want to use your ledger to do that. That would get really annoying. Like every time I want to text somebody at 3 in the morning, you got to get your ledger out, type in the code. No, you don't want to do that. You want it built into your phone, right? So in the same way that it's like, you can think of, oh, it's okay, I have all my crypto up at Coinbase. Well, that's fine, but then you can't use any of the keys because they have the private keys, you don't have them. So there's this new thing that will show up, that's just starting now to show up, called use. And if we actually start to use the blockchain, then we're going to have hundreds of transactions that are going on in our device that are going to need the protection of the keys and the formation of instructions. So I think you can see it as a whole spectrum. Your collection of devices, your identity. So when you lose a phone, you can remake that phone. Having things like a ledger or a similar device as part of your custodial model so that you put some portion of your root keys in the little vault in your house, and that's part of recovery if you lose your phone. Those are very practical and very consumer usable models because we're shifting to a world where the consumer is going to be in control of their keys. And we as an industry have to help them to never lose their keys, always be able to back them up because more crypto is lost by losing keys than stealing them, and then provide an adequate protection model. And so those become important if we're going to make this work because your hot tub keys, your car keys, your truck keys, keys to the house in Florida, keys to the Marriott room.
Back up the hot tub key?
Yeah, God forbid I lose my hot tub.
Ah, dude, it's fantastic. You can set the hot tub temperature remotely. It's awesome.
Okay,
There's no security at all. Yeah. So like somebody hacks into the account, your hot tub's running 100 degrees, you don't even know at a house you're not at, right? So it's like, there goes your power bill, you know when the power bill comes in, right? So it's interesting, but that's what go to the rest of CES. The rest of the CES has got the hot tub hooked to your phone. Absolutely.
Well, no, trust me, I know that there's a plethora of devices being launched, and this is an interesting and fascinating discussion because we're talking, I think, about it's a ways before we get what we're talking today. It just is. I mean, the consumer mindset today is not ready, I think, for some of these revolutionary type of changes.
I could not disagree more. I've been having this conversation within the PC industry. So I shipped my first hardware security device in 2000. Yeah. Right? And so we had that argument in 2001 when we set up the Trusted Computing Group. And then
talk to consumers.
Yeah.
I would argue you probably don't. I bet you huddle up with a bunch of smart guys
then we
and figure out all the consumer problems and then say we got to sort it out.
No, we made this stupid decision led by Microsoft to only ship Trusted Computing in enterprise. Yeah. And so instead of giving the consumers a technology they could take to work, we had to wait for the IT department to deploy it, which they never did. Yeah. Okay? And so, I mean, like, how many people think two-factor authentication sucks? Like, everybody does.
Show of hands.
Everybody. My daughter just got it she just got Duo on her Cornell account to check her grades. She's like, this is the stupidest thing. Like, who do I care who steals my grades? right? And she's like, has to type the thing in, and then they forget the code. And it's like, it's not that Duo's bad. They do a good job of it. But she's just annoyed. So why can't, we have this old model. It's worked. It's been proven. In the cable industry, we register a box, and your stuff shows up on the TV. It's fantastic. You like have remote control. You can be completely wasted and get HBO on the television set, right? There's no resetting. I'm sorry, your HBO password's been reset at 3:30 in the morning. You're not going to remember it when you type in the new one, right? No. The same thing is true in cellular. We didn't always have SIM chips. For a brief period of time, we had passwords every time you dialed the phone. Remember that?
I agree. It's an imperfect model. I'm not saying it's a good model or effective model or anything. I'm just saying that if you go talk to a farmer out in Iowa and you say, hey, listen, we want to set you up with this, and he's going to say, no, I'm good. I thought my brother, literally, I just bought him for Christmas, the first smartphone ever. He's been working with a flip phone. You know, I think what you're all talking about is interesting and fascinating technologies, and I hope they're ultimately successful. But I do think there's a crawl, walk, run approach to this, and I think we're probably getting years ahead of ourselves and trying to say, okay, we're solving a problem that the consumers don't even believe they have today.
So the consumer's screaming about the fact that they're being overly watched. Voyeurism is not the security model. That's what's been promoted by the core security players for the last 20 years, is voyeurism. We're going to watch your traffic. We're going to inspect you. We're going to track you everywhere we're going to go. We're going to give you big data with AI to assure that you are still you. So instead of turning on a trusted platform module and 1.8 billion PCs for banking, they deploy threat metrics, which keeps a database of every single time your computer connects to the internet and tracks it everywhere based on pixels on websites and the embedded components of your system. And that's why sometimes when you log onto your online bank account, it goes, are you still really you? Because they're guessing whether it's really your PC. They don't know. But understand, the technology to know is industry standard, vendor neutral, and built into 1.8 billion PCs. But what you lose is voyeurism of everybody's account. And so I would argue that consumers are pushing back. I think GDPR is pushing back. I think the privacy complaints are pushing back. We're sick and tired of being monitored everywhere we go. We would like our privacy. We would like the ability to do transactions without observation. The beauty of blockchain is there's one central god in charge of all of blockchain. You know who it is? One central player runs all of blockchain. The owner of the private key. Blockchain does nothing. It performs no function without the owner of the private key.
What happens if blockchain gets hacked?
That's an interesting challenge, okay, for sure. The
happen,
failure of the chain is certainly a risk. And I think we, as an industry, are going to have to figure out how we deal with that. Right now, it's not yet the scale of a problem to solve, but I think it is absolutely a concern. I don't disagree with you.
Well, and at one point they were talking that the way to at least do the, decipher it was through quantum computing. Well, IBM just announced a commercially available quantum computer. So we always get ahead of ourselves in these. I think, by the way, I think your premise about the validity and integrity of blockchain is rock solid. I just think when we get so excited and intrigued by these technologies that at some point the bad guys determine, okay, well, that's the next thing I need to go figure out how to make my victim, and it happens.
So we've got about 5 minutes left. I hate to cut off such a lively discussion. This has been excellent. I'm glad there is disagreement and stuff we can dig into here. But I want to make sure we give the audience a little bit of a chance to ask a question themselves. Before I do that, I'm going to ask one last question of all of my panelists. And so think about a question if you're out in the audience now. We'll try to take one or two. But before we turn things over, I want to go down the line and just ask for a security tip that consumers out here can take away to better protect themselves online. Eric, we can start with you.
Well, of course, it's going to be a cryptocurrency security tip. It's very important to secure your backup and also to take the time to understand what you are doing. I will just take one quick example. We have done, a very secure hardware wallet, etc. Many model threats have been taken care of. But in fact, some guys are just the ID. They buy a device like that. They insert 24 words, which is basically the private keys. They set the private keys in the device, and they send on Amazon, eBay, and they say, here is your private key, here is your PIN. And as people don't really understand what they are doing, they got hacked by a reverse hack. So it's very important to take the time to understand what you are doing. That would be more or less my tip. Just relax, 5 minutes, read the doc for once, and understand what you do. It is very important, especially in cryptocurrencies, where you are your own bank.
Excellent. Okay, Vincent, we'll go to you, and let's try to keep it quick. So we can get to the
Very
audience.
simple. Ensure that everything that you do on the net or anything that you do when you access online, whether it's your smartphone or your laptop, always set something up to do two-factor or multi-factor authentication.
All right, Gary, let's go to you. Sorry, I do want to
Pause.
get in a couple questions. What's that?
Pause. Just listen. Don't just take everything you get and start doing something. Think about it for just a second.
Excellent.
Pause.
I echo that. When somebody sends you an email saying, quick, send me some money to this account. Like, just take a deep breath, walk around the room once and go, really? And if you can, use more than one channel of confirmation. Do not assume email, messaging, texting, whatever, that the message you got was sent by the party you think it came from. It never hurts to pick up the phone, call them and say, hey, did you just send me a request for $100,000? It turns out to be a good thing.
All right, so let's turn to the audience. Do we have any questions? Anybody want to ask anything of our panelists? Raise your hand if you've got a question. Right over here. Or do we have mic runners, by the way? I'm not sure if we do.
They have to just stand up and ask the question.
Okay, just be voluble.
Yeah, it's a question for Vincent. Before moving forward with your ID solution, what other identification solutions did you look at, and why did you opt to create your own instead of jumping on something that already is underway?
All right, Vincent, so yeah, why did you create your device rather than going with the state-of-the-art that was already available?
So when I look at the concept of identity in isolation, this is my identity here, securely stored in a tamper-resistant hardware that I control. I do not control it on this smartphone. My touch code ID, my facial recognition, I don't control it. And so we started out with a device called Link that was dependent on the iPhone and the Android for NFC pairing. That fell apart. I pivoted and I decided to build a piece of hardware that is independent, that is in isolation outside of the chain.
Excellent. All right, we've got just a couple of minutes left. Anybody else have anything burning that they would like to ask? How about over here?
Yeah, this is for Steve. So feeding off of the 7 properties of a highly secure device, one of them is having the least amount of trusting computing base. Phones are the opposite of that. So how do you defend that?
Well, so
phones are in constant use, which makes them a big surface area for attack.
Sure.
Why rely on a phone?
inside your ARM processor, inside Trust Zone, you have a second operating system that does have the foundations of a trusted computing base. It's the best we have available today within the chipset architecture. I think as we continue to use these, they'll get better, similar to what Intel's done with SGX, and AMD's actually done the same thing that's in your Samsung phone. It's running an ARM isolated execution environment. We use the word trusted computing. Actually, I was in charge of the team that came up with a bunch of the branding around that for the trusted computing group. I think actually in retrospect it was incorrect. We really should think of it as measured compute. And so don't think of an absolute. When you have a trusted computing base, you want to know from the manufacturer, can I build up the software stack and measure signatures all the way along the way so that I have a measured compute environment. And then if I had a magic wand, it would be to teach the blockchain industry that we need a second hash. And the second hash goes with every transaction which says, this device in this measured condition performed this instruction, and write that on the chain. And so it's anonymous because it's just a random number, but to the owner of the platform, it proves the measured condition the device was in when it did the instruction. And so Ledger could do that, we can do that, but that attestation, that assurance, the same thing is true. It's like, great, I have my biometric on my hand. Is it working correctly? Is it running the right software? How do I know? And so measuring that signature against reference and assuring that my device is in a known condition with known controls, providing that protection, then it's a quality level. You can build Fort Knox and you can build, a little vault in your bedroom that you put $100 in. Those are still safes. They're just of different qualities, and that measured in compute environment is that quality metric that we need desperately across this entire ecosystem called the internet.
I'm sorry to say we are out of time, but thank you all so much for joining. I hope you gleaned some wisdom from our excellent security panelists here today. Let's all take a moment to pause and reflect on our own security.